welcome to this second day of our workshop on the product in women. And today we will move from the person to the organization, from the single point of innovation to the ecosystem. We'll try to introduce this by a question. What are the characteristics of an innovative organization? Because you may be very innovative, but if you are in a context where the innovation is not, developed and not in a way welcome, then you will have to think about how to change this organization. This is the idea of this presentation. So, the innovation ecosystem. What are the characteristics of this ecosystem? Usually we think about the innovator as a single person, very creative, as we saw yesterday, and it's true, but the question is now how, in terms of collective effort, in terms of the people that are in charge for preparing the background for this innovation. This is the focus of this presentation. How you can leverage those creativity in a right way. So the big question is what is innovation, as we saw yesterday. And my point here is that innovation is not an option. Innovation is not something that we can imagine with a model in spikes, but it's a continuous flow. It's a continuous flow where we as a human beings are inserted, and we as a human beings, we have to capture those flow of innovation. So sometimes we want to stop, sometimes we want to leverage this wave of innovation. And probably the oldest thought about innovation was about Heraclit, and nothing is as steady as the change. So this is the idea of a continuous flow where immersed. And of course Darwin that suggested to have sensors that are able to detect the changing environment and then to stay in sync with this evolution. And again, this idea of a continuous flow where we as a human beings are uncertain, it's well synthesized in this sentence, very old Chinese proverb. When the wind of change blows, some build walls against the wind, but others build windmills. So we can use this metaphor as a startup, an incubator, or an organization that will try to capture innovation in terms of developing a business model and a small enterprise and so on, and also all the ecosystem that would like to leverage these small startups, like the idea of a windmill that is able to capture this wind of innovation. And in front of some issue that some problems and some obstacles that we find in our life, the challenges that startups are facing, and also researchers are facing. Sometimes we as a human beings try to reuse all the tools, to try to adapt the old tools, and this is the effort of adapters. No? On the other side, when we are facing a completely new challenge, the true innovators start to think outside the box, start thinking really, as we saw yesterday, using completely different way of overcoming those obstacles. So this is another way of looking at innovation. But if you look carefully at the characteristic of a person before going up to the organization, you can use this very simple model coming from Palo Alto Research Center many years ago. And after analyzing tens, hundreds, thousands of people that were working in the area of innovation, up this kind of clustering in 4 different areas of persons, looking at the 2 main characteristics. One is their interests, their targets. The targets are maybe you are, it's likely when you are deciding your faculty at the university. Rethink about what was your process when you take this decision. Why you decided to go for engineering and not for medicine or philosophy or literature. What was your process for taking this decision? And again here, in this direction, you see the different targets. If you are moving to the right here, you are focused on the law of the universe. You want to understand, to investigate the law of nature. You are an observer, and you want to describe those things like, with a scientific approach. On the other side, if you move to the left, maybe your interests are more on humans, more on concentrating on, as here, more minds. So you're interested in how human beings organize themselves, how human beings are exchanging messages, communicating each other. And then on the vertical side, you have the focus, maybe on the inside or on the outside. Well, we as engineers, we easily find our place in this scenario that is in the top right, because we want to know the law of the universe, we want to investigate the scientific law of our environment, and try to understand how to move atoms, how to engineer DNA, how to use these knowledge for improving our life. And of course, our focus on the outside. We want to make tangible things. And the key point here is that sometimes we as engineers, when we are going to set up a startup, an organization, so when we are moving from the single innovator to the innovative organization, innovative startups, we probably need other people with other skills, with other focus and targets. Because sometimes we need people that are able to transmit this message, this innovation up to the market. Because as we saw yesterday, the real definition of innovation is when you are able to take these kind of things, these new things, up to the market. When your idea becomes a product or a service, this is an innovation. But in this transition, in this move from one lab up to the market, maybe you need creative people, maybe in the marketing, in the communication. Because we should also rethink when we move to the market that a company is based on 4 fundamental processes. You need to let people know what you are doing, so you need some tools for engaging. Engaging means you have a marketing person, a communication person that is in charge to communicate to the audience, to the public, what you are doing. Then you need to collect transactions. You need people able to sell those things. Then you need to deliver what you have promised to the customers. And then you have to make a post-sale assistance, maintenance, service, let's say. So engage, transact, fulfill, and service are the 4 main steps that you need to concentrate for building a real startup, a real company, moving from the innovation labs up to the market. So sometimes we are concentrated on the top right, but we need, of course, also the other kind of innovators that we call scientists, artists, and designers. And here you have some examples of those kind of people. In the top right, you know the well-known Steve Wozniak, the innovator about they got the idea of the personal computer, and Steve Jobs was let's say the more business-oriented creative person. And then you have the scientist on the bottom right, and then the Picasso as a metaphor of artist, and Hudson as a designer. Welcome. So, so again, the idea is once we have an innovator, once we have an innovative idea, what are the key questions that we should start thinking in terms of an organization? How to help this innovator in this move to the market? And the origin of innovator may be many sources of innovation you can have, but these are the main so-called pragmas innovation. And in our experience, what we have seen from the engineering schools, let's say quite often we got the number one and number four. Number one, of course, problem solvers. Our engineers are problem solvers. But the most interesting one is the number four. Number four means that you are able to forecast the future. You are able to imagine the future. You are able to prepare for something that will happen maybe in 4 years, 10 years from now. But if you start now, you are able to intersect this kind of evolution. So preparing from the future or making the future is the best way of forecasting. And because sometimes you have a very innovative idea, but the market is not yet there. So time to market, to be on the right time to the market is another key point that you have to take into account when you're setting up your startup or your enterprise. So let's now move to the organization. What we need around this person. What kind of organization we are going to set up. We are moving from the traditional industrial management approach to intellectual management approach. And most of our startups are indeed a collection of knowledge workers, people that are, let's say, maybe at the end of their PhD or after 25 years of studying and research. So they want to set up organizations that are not based on a hierarchy or a culture that is too much structured, but the organization is based on teaming, on very dynamic teaming. They make a project, then they reassemble in another project in a very dynamic way. And of course, the management style is based on trust. So the persons that like to take the lead of those innovative organizations should base their leadership not on control but on trust, because in a knowledge working environment you accept people that are able to discuss with you, to take a conversation with you, and not just take orders. So with a military approach, with a strong organization based on strong control. The focus, of course, is the future. We are, as we said, you want to intercept the future. And another interesting characteristic is that you know what are the personal goals of the knowledge workers around you. So you are setting up a team with people that are knowledge workers and that they have their personal goals. It's not just concentrated on doing some things, but they are concentrated also on being. As human beings, they have their project, their plans, and it's very important that your organization is able to realize, to make this real. As we saw yesterday, dream. Dream is a very important part of our life. So, here we have a quite similar list of factors, strategic factors for creating an innovation climate for your startup. And here, some of those are very interesting. For example, the maverick, the person that usually is not strictly following the rules of the environment. Sometimes you need somebody that is pushing the organization to the borders. And sometimes you need people that is dressed in a strange way like me, with the tire. Maverick. So do you accept them or you keep up? You keep up. So this is the another characteristic of very innovative environments where you usually accept mavericks. Or another key point is failures. Failures is usually we think as failures as a negative concept, but failures in an environment where we are concentrated on innovation are tolerated. If you don't fail, it means that you are not accepting real challenges. So fail is part of your life when you decide to go for the innovation. So we should not punish failures, but we should tolerate failure. And so on. So you have all those characteristics that may be interesting for thinking about your organization. Another key point here is, of course, how much you are open to cooperate with external body, with external entities. And here another characteristic that we see in our startups is they are open, of course. They are collaborating with other startups, with other more, let's say, structured, more consolidated companies. So they are very open to cooperate. And the decision making. This is another key point that, let's say, take into account the how young people reach an agreement. You are maybe engineers of 25 years old, 28 years old, at the end of your master or your PhD. Well, usually you would like to have a decision-making process that is based on participation. You know, it's not an autocratic decision. You should not. Usually, you do not accept somebody that imposes to you something. You want to say something from your point of view. You want to have a word. So these some of the characteristics that, in our experience, and with my eyes, I've seen our incubator from the beginning, from the very first day in 1999. And in 18 years, I've seen a lot of those young people that are, fails and successful startups. And but this was a constant. This was a characteristic that we have seen since many years. How they take decisions. This is a very important point. So, if you want to enter into a more structured definition of this ecosystem, you should go through this question. What is our definition of innovation? So, think about, for a few seconds, about you. What do you think is your definition of innovation? And Van der Merwe and Van Tilburg, one of the firms that in the Netherlands is investigating this area of innovation since many years, they define this, they propose this definition. Of course, this question has not one precise answer. It's not one single answer. It's a very complex question with many core answers. But they propose this definition. Innovation is defendable competitive advantage. So you are able to set up your windmills. You remember the first Chinese program. You are able to capture this wind of innovation, but then you need to keep your competitive advantage sustainable. So it's defendable as sustainable competitive advantage. But the key point here is how do you keep this advantage sustainable? How do you keep this cycle closed, and how you are able to maintain your market share? Are you able to maintain your percentage of profit, and then reinvest and then reopen another cycle? So this cycle introduces us into the idea of sustainability of our business, not just one shot. If you want to set up a startup, it's not just to making one shot on the market, but we want to grow. We want to, maybe with some exit strategies that we will see tomorrow, maybe the day after tomorrow. But how? So we will see in a few minutes some of those tools. For example, from the legal point of view, you can go for patents, for example, or for industrial secrets or copyrights, or whatever will be the legal tool that you choose for maintaining this competitive advantage, on the market. But this is in our experience, in particular with the growth of ICT, with the growth of global information infrastructure, it's becoming more and more difficult to concentrate only on the legal tool that is able to defend your innovation cycle. You should also think about other dimensions for keeping this cycle, this innovation sustainable. For example, speed. Speed, how quick are you in developing new ideas and new business model? And sometimes it's exactly the business model, the innovation that you are taking to the market. Not just the product, not just the services, but how do you maintain that cycle about engage, transact, fulfill, and service. So maybe you invent a new way of delivering ICT service online, and so the idea is that you provide your product and services as a service. So this is the new emerging business models, for example, in ICT. So, or time, attention, and trust. Time, attention, and trust is the key strategies for the big companies over the web. The big five: Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google. They are based on this business model. They try to capture time, attention, and trust of people that are going online. Or knowledge. You are able to deliver much more knowledge than in the past in a new way, with the new business models. Or responsible innovation. You are able to address the big challenge of the next 20 years, for example, the climate change. So responsible innovation is suggesting to develop new ideas in the area of sustainability, long-term sustainability. So this, let's say, defendable competitive advantage is based on the legal tools, but not just on the legal tools. Now you have to enlarge your horizon for this defense. This is my definition of innovation. For me, innovation is, in my experience, I've seen a lot of creativity around. I've started working in 1974 in the area of innovation research, in particular in computer science. And I've seen a lot of creativity that ended up in a very nice paper, very nice books that's interesting for the career, for the, for your own team in developing your role in the academic world. That is fine. But most of the time this finishes with an idea description. That's okay, but it's the beginning. We need hundreds of thousands of ideas, new ideas, because we have to select those ideas. So we need, in our experience, for example, the selection process is 110-1. So 100 ideas, 10 is going through the selection, 1 startup is set up. So it's 100 to 1 is the proportion. So creativity is the first step. You end up with the idea description. Then the second step is feasibility study. Your idea is converted in something that can be done. You demonstrate that can be done, but it's still on paper. It's still a document. It's still a theoretical exercise. But you are going to address all the issue when you want to develop something. So it's feasible. And maybe that in this step, second step, feasibility study, you include some market and financial analysis. You should, let's say, start thinking about the business model and prepare applied research. But then, in order to reach the market, on the other side of this wall, can you see, you have real companies where what they do? They do development, manufacturing, marketing, engage, sales, get transaction, delivery, fulfill, support and maintenance, service. So these are the real companies, innovative companies. But in the middle you have this barrier, let's say this border. And as we will see in a few minutes, we, as a university, most of the universities around the world are in their organization an office delegated to this so-called technology transfer or knowledge transfer. And so the key question is, how can we jump this wall? How we can cross these barriers? There are several ways of crossing these barriers. As we will see, there are of course patents and intellectual property management. And maybe in your university, this office already supports you in this area of issues. And or you can, and then when you have the patents, let's say it's a nice envelope for your idea, and you sell this idea to somebody else, to some companies outside. Then another way of bridging this, of crossing this barrier is research contract. You, as an academy, you sign a research contract with the real company. Maybe it's an engagement for 3-6 months, or a small consultancy engagement, maybe 1 day, 1 week. Or you should have work labs. So you invite companies in your university for teaching them, for exchanging your ideas with them, the typical approach of open innovation. But the key question is, when there is no company on the other side of the barriers that is ready to accept your idea, what you will do? If you are not able to find somebody interested in developing your idea, what you will do? Many researchers comes to us and say, I want to develop this idea. I want to set up a startup. And then starts our role. Our role as incubator, and HGP is the incubator of Polytechnic of Torino. We start thinking, how can we support those young researchers in their idea of setting up a real startup? Because there is no companies on the other, not yet companies on the other side, so we set up our own companies. This is the basic idea. When the university has an interesting idea and there is not yet a market on the other side, the big decision is, let's set up our own companies. This is a startup. And then you can see the process of inside incubation, but we will see much more detail tomorrow. It's scouting of idea, pre-incubation, incubation, and then, but in this, at this stage, there is somebody that is taking care of this small company. A team of 3-4 researchers, young researchers, and there is a coach, a mentor that is taking care of them. And for 3 years, they are supported in developing their companies. And this is, let's say, the downstream innovation coming from academic research up to the market. But of course, innovation is also upstream when you get something from already existing companies. And you should be ready also to support them, because maybe this is the touching point between academy and market. But on the right, you can see also that this ecosystem is not possible to build this kind of ecosystem without the, let's say, the fundamental role played by public authorities. The local town authorities, the regional, the national government, so the people that prepare, let's say, the policy makers that prepare the good environment for nurturing the innovation. And of course, the third actor here are the real companies. So the ecosystem, the 3 main agents of this ecosystem are, of course, innovators, universities, public authorities, and real companies. If those 3 are able to establish good connection, good relationship, this is the core network the core ecosystem of innovation. Just to simplify this relationship among the academic world and the real world, usually those are two planets that don't, in the past, 20 years ago, it was very difficult to establish a good relationship among these two worlds. They were talking different language, different goals, but now we are realizing that we need to establish a strong relationship among these two worlds. Those two planets have to speak each other and establish a collaboration. And of course, from the in the downstream, you see the valorization of research. We will see in a few minutes the technology transfer office of our university. And here you can have all the main tools that you can use for doing this valorization of research. Again, consultancy, research contract, patents, incubators, because this is another way of making value of your research. But on the other side, you should be able to get requirements coming from real companies. You should be able to accept their needs, to understand their needs, for example, in building a prototype. Maybe you have here a research lab that has a very interesting tools, but you use just for 2 days per week. Maybe for 3 days a week you can host real companies here for doing their prototypes, so you collaborate. Or maybe they will need specialized competence. Maybe they will need a young researcher. Maybe they will need lifelong education, so you can set up masters for companies, something like that. So this is the many ways that for establishing a good relationship among these two planets. So in the end, another important thing is can we measure innovation? Can we start thinking and look at this ecosystem and see how many ideas, how is keeping the promise of taking innovation to the society? And there are many ways, of course, of measuring innovation. This is one of the most structured ones, is the Global Innovation Index. That is maybe a very interesting example to have a look at it in terms of understanding the model of based on the inputs to innovation, and this is based on institutions, the human capital research, infrastructure, market sophistication, business sophistication. This is the environment where you introduce innovation, and then the innovation output, where you are looking for measuring knowledge and technology outputs and the creative outputs. If you look where Italy is in this ranking, we are very close to Spain in this, the top one, the global innovation index, Switzerland, Sweden, and so on. So maybe an interesting area to see how usually the world is measuring this innovation. The European Union is measuring every year with the scoreboard, the innovation scoreboard countries all around Europe, and maybe an interesting probe for looking at how we are making this innovation around Europe. Maybe it's interesting to look around when you set up a startup. Now, today, you should start, from day one, you should start thinking about internationalization, international relationship, international customers. So today you are playing in a global scenario. So things like this can be useful to look where you want to go. What kind of product and service are you able to deliver in Sweden or in Denmark or in Croatia? It's up to you. So this is the innovation scoreboard, very simple. On the horizontal axis you have the speed, what are the delta since 2008 and 2015, and on the vertical side you have the score, the yearly score. So it's interesting to see the position, but also the speed, because you are behind, but your speed is much higher than the others. So next year you will be on the highest level and highest ranking. So this is a very interesting model for helping startups in looking around, when they start thinking on the global way. Just to close, just an example of the World Economic Forum top 10 emerging technology. Every year they publish this another way of looking at innovation. What are the, in terms of looking from the point of view of the world leaders in the financial and economic world, what they are looking for in this area of technologies. And this is the 2015 top 10 emerging technologies, and this is 2016 top 10 emerging technology. An interesting trend is that, as you will see here, these on the right, 6 out of 10 are based on ICT. So ICT is becoming the new platform where any business will be developed. So the country, the ecosystem, local or national ecosystems that are, or continental ecosystem like the European one, that are building the more structured ICT platform. Think about the cloud providers. So, just the question. The European Union is looking very carefully at setting up European cloud providers, because all the cloud providers are based on another continent, and this can become an issue when this platform will become the platform that you use for delivering your business. So ICT is a very important part of this discussion. And in 2015 you have robotics, distributed manufacturing, additive manufacturing, neuromorphic computing, artificial intelligence, drones. And on the other side you have, for the first time, we will be able to produce really recyclable plastic, or hydrogen cars, or genetic engineering and digital genome. In 2016, you have the Internet of Things, or the Internet of Nanothings, autonomous vehicles, the blockchain, organ-on-chips, OpenAI ecosystem. It's again, it's in the area of ICT. On the other side, you have systems, engineering system, looking at how nature is developing metabolic processes. Or next generation of batteries, for example. This is a very interesting area where we're discussing with some of you yesterday. This will be one of the key enablers of the next way of generating energy, renewable energies. To the materials, we had a discussion also about graphene yesterday. Optogenetics, perovskite solar cells, so the new materials for building high efficiency solar cells. Just an example of what are the main trends in this area of emerging technologies. Thank you very much for your time.